So you're looking for your first medium format camera, but you don't really know where to start. Well, hopefully in today's video, I'm going to give you some help and advice and help you find the right first medium format camera for you. We're going to look at 6x6, 6x4.5 or 645, and 6x7. So most analog medium format cameras these days shoot 120-roll film. Now this film is 6 centimeters wide, and then how long each image is determined by the system that you use. So we've got 6x6 centimeters, 6x4.5 centimeters, and 6x7 centimeters. So the 6x6, that's going to get you 12 images per roll of 120 film. The 6x4.5 is going to get you 15, and the 6x7 is going to get you 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each system individually and talk about its pros and cons and whether it's right for a beginner or not. So firstly, 6x6. So this is a square format, and more often than not, it's found on twin lens reflex cameras like this Lumitel 166B. So these are fixed lenses, and basically they're really, really simple little things. All you do is load your film in the back, wind it on, and then take your image. Very few working parts in these, very little that can go wrong. Ones like this, which is a Lumitel, so these are kind of Russian Soviet era from the 50s and 60s, and they are made like tanks, and you can tell they just take an absolute beating. Very little that can go wrong, very little upkeep. They also are incredibly cheap, so they start at kind of 40, 50, 60 quid, but you can get them for even less than that if you get them from charity shops or Facebook Marketplace. Lots of people will have these in lofts from parents and grandparents and stuff like that. They do go up to premium TLRs like Yashica mats and things like that. With those, you can tell where that extra money is being spent. They are far better quality, but they do still have the same drawbacks in terms of very little control over the shooting process. So you again start your fixed. You still have your fixed lens. They do tend to have very small viewfinders, which can be a bit of a struggle, but they are very cheap. And also 12 shots per roll is kind of the middle of these when it comes to value for money per roll of film. Next up, we've got 6x4.5. So in terms of shots per roll, this is where you get your most bang for your buck. So because they're only 4.5 centimeters long, as opposed to 6 and 7, you actually get 15 shots per roll of 120 on a 6.45 system. 645 system, apologies. These tend to be modular cameras, or semi-modular at least. So things like this Mamiya 645, or there's the Pentax 645, the Bronica ETR, I'm pretty sure that's a 645 camera as well. With these, you tend to have interchangeable lenses, which is a huge plus over twin lens reflex cameras. Although you can also get the Bronica SQ, which is a 6x6 camera, and that you can change lenses on because it's not a twin lens reflex camera. But yeah, back to 645, you can usually get interchangeable lenses. The lenses do tend to be far better quality on the whole than your 6x6 equivalent. You've also got what tend to be far bigger viewfinders, and also as well, you can change your viewfinders on these systems as well. So this is a waist level viewfinder, but you can get prisms, you can get metered prisms. There's a lot more that you can do with them. Loading them is still pretty easy. So with this one, for example, you have a cassette in the back that you load your film onto, and then just close that up. However, you can obviously only shoot one roll at a time with both this and the 6x6. So the roll that's in there, you have to shoot it in full before taking it out. In terms of the cost of these cameras, we are talking about a jump up from these. So you're now talking sort of several £100 for one of these systems. I think that I got this one for about four or £500, but this came with an extra cassette insert for the back. It came with both the prism and waist level viewfinders. But yeah, you do know where that money's been spent. I mean, they are far bigger, they're far better made, they are well built, and they do also give you more options. So things like you can shoot multiple exposures on this camera. and there's actually a mode for that where if you're not wanting to do that, you can stop it. That's not on all 645 cameras. And again, this is where we come back to getting your bang for your buck with 15 shots per roll. Medium format is definitely a learning curve. You can really struggle when you first start shooting, and even after you've been shooting for a long time, as I still do, you can shoot accidental double exposures, which I've done more times than I care to admit. Also as well, the focusing is much more precise with medium format, so missing focus, double exposures, things like that, they're far less costly when you get more shots per roll. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Now, if we're just talking about the quality of the image, this is where you want to be. So 6x7, the biggest negative of the three, combined with invariably the best glass, means that you're going to get fantastic results with these cameras. So this is a Mamiya RB67, there's also the Mamiya RZ67, the Pentax 67, obviously some Hasselblad, I believe, is 6x7 as well. There are a lot of different options, but it's not just the image quality that goes up, it's also the price, the size and the weight. If we turn all these sideways, you can see the difference. These things are beasts. Now, they are heavy. Ideally, you want these to be in studios or at the very least on tripods. You're not going to be hanging this around your neck, not unless you're The Rock or something. They're really heavy, but the images that you get from them are fantastic. These tend to be fully modular. So whereas with the 6x45 you can change the lenses, you can change the viewfinders. You can also do that on both of these. You can also do both of those things on these. But also what you do tend to have as well is removable backs. So you can take one back off because you've got a dark slide here. So you can take one back off mid-roll and put another back on. So what you might have is one back that's got colour filming and one that's got black and white filming, and you don't have to wait to finish the roll to shoot a different emulsion. For me, that's a huge positive. For you, that might not make a difference, but it is something that's worth knowing as well. And then another thing that we've not spoken about so far is composition. So if we go back over these, with your 6x6, it's a square negative. So you aren't going to be able to get portrait or landscape. Now, for some people, again, that may be a benefit. You're certainly not going to have to rotate your camera to shoot in portrait or landscape because they're all going to come out square anyway. Also, one thing to note is that even if you crop the 6x6 negative to portrait or landscape, it's still a far bigger negative than a 35mm equivalent. So you are still going to be getting more quality images from a cropped 6x6 image than from a 35mm image. Obviously, not taking into account the difference in lens quality and things like that, and nailing your exposure and getting it in focus. But just in terms of purely of the negative size, it is still going to be bigger than 35mm, so you are still making that jump up. With 645 cameras, I'm pretty sure that with the exception of maybe one or two, they all shoot landscape. They just shoot landscape as standard, which means that if you want to take a portrait image, you are going to have to rotate it. Now, if you're using the prism viewfinder, that's fine. But if you're using one of these raised level viewfinders, composing that image is going to be pretty tough. So that is something worth bearing in mind. Whereas with something like the RB67, the RB actually stands for rotating back. So this rotates from landscape to portrait, meaning that with the camera still facing the same way, you can get a portrait or a landscape full-size image really easily. You're not going to have to turn the camera or anything like that. You don't have to take the back off. You simply rotate it, compose for landscape or portrait, and take your shot. So that's another big advantage for the 6x7. So overall, I think personally that if you're just wanting to get into medium photography to see if you like it, this is definitely the way to go, because the cameras are so cheap that you can get a camera and 3, 4, 5 rolls of medium format film shoot them, and yes, you're going to be getting 3 images less per roll than with the 645, but the cost of that, when you take into account the cost of the camera, is still going to be significantly less than buying a 645 camera, unless you get an absolute bargain, in which case, by all means. But yeah, I think that this is a great way to get into it. If having different lenses and different viewfinders and stuff is a must for you, then 645 is definitely the way to go, because you're getting the benefit of that more control over your photography process, so being able to change the lenses, change the viewfinder, stuff like that, whilst still getting the best bang for your buck. So those mistakes that I mentioned earlier are going to be less costly. If money is no object whatsoever, then just get a 6x7 camera. Unless obviously you need it to be out in the field, because like I said, these are very heavy. If you're going hiking or something like that, you definitely want to be more this end of the spectrum. But yeah, if it's just quality that you want in and money's no object, 6x7 is where you're going to get the best quality. That's where you want to be. For me personally, I actually bought these cameras in this order. So this was my first ever medium format camera. I did do a video when I first got this, that'll be up here. I was really happy with the results that I got. I had that for quite a while as my own medium format camera before moving on to the Mclean M645. This camera has been featured on this channel a lot. I've no idea how many rolls I've shot from this, but it's far more than my accountant would like me to have done. And then the RB67 is my most recent medium format camera, so that's the one that I've got most recently. And I couldn't have justified the cost of this back when I got this. So yeah, that's the order that I went in. That's the order that I would recommend, unless the features from this are a must over here. But I want to know what you guys think. What was your first medium format camera? If you haven't got a medium format camera yet, have you thought about these 3 kinds of systems, or is there one in particular that stands out to you? Have you got one of the other medium format sizes, so 6x8, 6x9, 6x17, the panoramic cameras that you can get? They look amazing. I'd love to know what it's like to shoot and live with one of those. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, I hope that I've given you some help. I hope that I've maybe steered you towards one of these which is right for you. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.